A Christmas Carol is about a grumpy old man named Ebenezer Scrooge who gets visited by 3 ghosts in order to gain his Christmas spirit. I'm pretty sure they also want to traumatize him because good god do they do some disturbing stuff. It begins with a corpse that has coins over his eyes. Lovely. And a sad Ebenezer Scrooge who pays the undertaker, and then takes the coins from his dead partner's eyes just in case you didn't know how cheap he was. On his way back to the office, he passes by some carolers who stopped singing just in case you didn't know how much of a grouch he was. Then 7 years later, he's at his office and his nephew comes by to wish him a Merry Christmas.
Ah, humbug.
Because it wouldn't be a Christmas Carol if Scrooge didn't say that. So they get into some long argument about Christmas and not being such a grouch, and then he leaves. So that solved nothing. Then these two come in and ask for a donation to feed the poor, and Scrooge basically tells them to screw off and then he hopes the poor die. Just in case you didn't know how much of a complete asshole he was. At the end of the day, Scrooge complains about having to pay Bob Cratchit here for Christmas Day, even though he's not working. But at least Bob's happy. Man, the faces in this just fall into the uncanny valley. When he gets home, there's a ghost on his door knocker, but then it just goes away. And that night, all the service bells in his room start ringing. Wait, hang on. That's not how service bells work. They should not be in the master's bedroom. They should be in the service room or in the kitchen with strings attached to different bells that go to different rooms. That way the housemaster can pull the string and ring a bell, and the servants would know what room he's in. It makes no sense for the bells to be in Scrooge's room. But whatever, the ghost of his dead partner visits him, and tells him that since he's such a cheap, grouchy asshole, he will be visited by 3 spirits. 1 each night for the next 3 nights. But while he tells him this, his jaw breaks, and then he has to hit it closed in order to talk. This movie is rated PG, and then he just leaves. That night he gets visited by the ghost of Christmas past, who looks creepy as hell, starts twitching like crazy, and talks like a freaking snake.
They have no consciousness of us.
See what I mean? He then takes Scrooge to his childhood town and the school where his crappy friends just left him. Then another Christmas where his sister comes to take him home, but I guess she later died. And yet another Christmas where he had an apprenticeship with the most athletic old man ever. I have no idea how he did that without breaking his arms. And a party where whatever this is happens. Seriously, what is going on with these people? Anyway, this is where he meets the love of his life. Fast forward to yet another Christmas where his now fiancée is telling him that he's too obsessed with money. This gets him mad, so she breaks up with him. What's with every event in this guy's life happening on Christmas? No wonder he hates it. Then the ghost's face starts changing into people from his past, and so Scrooge makes him go away. Good job showing him how much his life sucks. I'm sure he feels great about it now. Then immediately after, instead of the next night, he gets visited by the ghost of Christmas Present, who's basically Santa Claus and laughs like a crazy person. And this lasts entirely too long. He shows Scrooge all the townspeople playing and going to church, and Scrooge almost looks happy. So the ghost takes him to Bob Cricket's house to ruin it. Bob gets home with his son, Tiny Tim, who was never even mentioned until now, and he walks with a cane. And since Bob is such a nice guy, he makes a toast to Ebenezer Scrooge, which makes him feel bad, and now he's concerned about Tiny Tim all of a sudden, even though he obviously would have known about him earlier but never really seemed to care before. The Christmas Present ghost throws the whole "I hope the poor die" thing in his face, and now it's time for things to get really dark. They go to this creepy clock tower, and Scrooge notices a hand under the ghost's robe, and these 2 decrepit kids who represent ignorant and want are just hiding under it. Then at midnight, the ghost dies, the kids grow up to be a murderer and prostitute as adults who go to prison and an insane asylum. And all the while, the ghost of Christmas Present is laughing while he slowly decays into a skeleton. What the hell? This movie is rated PG. I kind of said that as a joke earlier, but now I'm wondering how they pulled that off. Probably because it's Disney. And after he turns to dust, it's the ghost of Christmas Future's turn. Wait, what happened to 1 each visiting him each night? Anyway, he's basically a Grim Reaper and shows Scrooge people laughing that he's dead. But he doesn't get it. Then the ghost chases him with a horse and chariot, and after a 4-minute chase scene, Scrooge ends up small and in what looks like a drug den, where these 2 who look like drug addicts took his stuff. And he sees his nephew happy that he gets his money. But this idiot still doesn't get it, and to make everything worse, he sees Bob's family mourning Tiny Tim's death. So to make it obvious for Scrooge, the ghost takes him to a graveyard and shows him a gravestone. Okay, his death date is Christmas and it doesn't show the year, which is fine, but that third number is definitely a 4, which means that even if he died in 1849, that makes him 63. He has got to be the worst age late 50 or early 60 something in the world. Well, then he falls into his grave. Then he wakes up on Christmas Day all happy and tells his kid to buy the biggest turkey in the butcher shop but doesn't give him any money for it. Then he leaves his room.
Mrs. Dilbert.
Oh, I guess the drug addict was his maid? When the hell did they establish this? Then there's a scene of him being all cheerful, but no one seems all that concerned about it. Which is weird because this guy spent most of his life being a cheap, grouchy asshole, and no one's gonna understand why he changed so much overnight. Then he goes to his nephew's house for supper. The next day, he gives Bob a raise and sends him to buy coal for the shop. Well, at least someone thinks that this is strange. And I guess he helped with Tiny Tim's health issues.
God bless us, everyone!
Because it wouldn't be a Christmas Carol if he didn't say that. This is a really creepy kids movie, and that's because it's almost an exact screenplay of Charles Dickens's original Christmas Carol novel. Scrooge can be kind of creepy with how angry he is all the time, but he has nothing on Jacob's ghost or the ghost of Christmas Present. It genuinely shocked me when Jacob's jaw broke and he had to hit his mouth shut in order to talk. The ghost of Christmas Present is the one that disturbed me the most, even more than Christmas Future, with how he starts off as a Santa Claus character and then turns into a psycho as he dies with these two kids who turn into a murderer and a prostitute. And then they get sent to prison and an insane asylum. Like, what the hell? It makes me wonder if the MPA considered giving this a PG-13 for some disturbing content. I don't think it quite deserves that, but it's right on the border. I also don't get why very many people weren't all that concerned about Scrooge's dramatic attitude change overnight. The voice acting is really good in this. Jim Carrey is great as Ebenezer Scrooge. I really like the voice that he chooses for the character, and he does a good job at sounding angry, scared, and even happy at times. He also voices all the Christmas ghosts and does a good job. Gary Oldman is great as Bob Cricket. He has general care in his voice when he's talking with Scrooge and sorrow when he's mourning Tiny Tim's death, who he also voices and is crazy good at with how different his voice sounds. It actually sounds like a little kid. Colin Firth is alright as Fred, but he's not in much of it, so it makes it kinda hard to really judge his performance. The animation is great, but I kinda find it off-putting. I think it's because they use motion and facial capture, which makes the faces look slightly off. The movement and environment animations are fantastic though. I'm really surprised the MPA didn't give this a PG-13 rating, at least initially, but it's probably because it's Disney, so they were lenient. Don't forget to do the YouTube stuff, and thanks for watching.